Well, Benito Mussolini. That makes a good question for the yes or no treatment. Was Mussolini good for Italy? Well, Mussolini, as many of you must know, was the Prime Minister of Italy from 1922 to 1943, and of course the leader going into the Second World War. He was also really kind of a folk hero. After the shambles of the First World War and the devastation that Italy found itself in, uh, he formed a kind of populist group in the early 20s, culminating in a march on Rome, when he gradually got the favor of both the people, the political establishment, and even the king. The king was Victor Emmanuel III, who, by the way, was only 5 feet tall. But Victor Emmanuel III managed to be the king from 1900 to 1946, so he was a survivor despite everything else that was going on. By the way, Victor Emmanuel III got some advice from his father, Victor Emmanuel II, who was the chap who is memorialized in that enormous wedding cake monument, they call it in Rome. Anyway, the advice that he got was from his father: you only have to know how to do three things. You have to know how to sign your name, read the paper, and ride a horse, which sounds like a pretty practical advice, really, when you get right down to it. But in any case, uh, Mussolini was a real demagogue. He was a charismatic leader, so he managed to quickly garner support. He portrayed the destiny of Italy as one of recreating ancient Rome. And he had the kind of symbols of ancient Rome, even the fasces, which became the fascist political philosophy. And he therefore embarked upon a program of colonial conquest in Africa, Libya, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Albania even. And in fact, his charisma was such that Hitler, observing this, of course, Mussolini was in power before Hitler was enamored of Mussolini. This was someone he wanted to emulate. He took great lessons from watching Mussolini, including even the famous salute that the Nazis had. That was taken from the Italians. So in many respects, Mussolini was kind of a dictatorship role model for the early decades of the 20th century. But in any case, Mussolini's war record was just awful. The Italians performed very badly in confrontations with various forces, especially against the Americans, who finally came sweeping up through Italy on their way to confront Hitler from the south. Uh, he was seen as a loser by Hitler. Hitler had to bail Italy out on several occasions and sent Rommel into Africa. And he also had to bail him out in Greece. So eventually Hitler just, regarded Mussolini as a kind of a buffoon. Mussolini eventually came to the end of his premiership. The Germans once again kind of rescued him and sort of half reinstated him in the north of Italy. But then the partisans caught up with him and his girlfriend and executed them and hung them upside down in Rome. Oh dear, what an ignominious end. Well, the way often of all such dictators, Hitler in his bunker, and others that we could name who are also coming to ignominious ends. Well, I guess there's still some arguments that can be made, despite all of that history, that Mussolini was good for Italy, and of course there are those who say he was terrible, he was a disaster. So let's look at the arguments. First, let's look at those who say that Mussolini was good for Italy? Well, to begin with, and I guess most notably, he was a charismatic leader, someone who kind of plucked at the heartstrings of the nation and helped them emerge from an area of depression and failure in the 1920s, and as a consequence of that, gained a fervent following. He was also a man who could speak with incredible eloquence. He was a great orator. He certainly, in this respect, inspired Hitler. And, of course, he was a fervent anti-communist, where the communists represented kind of the left wing of the political spectrum, which, of course, the fascists opposed. And he was therefore seen by many, certainly the establishment, to be a hero for Italy to fight communism and grind away at that part of the political spectrum. Next, he was very tough on any form of civil unrest. He put down any kind of demonstrations by labor unions with ferocity and eventually outlawed labor unions. As such, became a hero to the middle class, to business owners, and so forth. And of course, for many, that would be seen to be a desperately unfair, undemocratic, negative characteristic. But for many, that was heroism. Next, he sorted out the long, festering problem with the Vatican. We remember way back in the middle of the 19th century when the Republic of Italy was proclaimed, Garibaldi came to power, and the Vatican states were seized for Italy, and the Vatican felt aggrieved for many, many years for not having been compensated for the loss of their territory. Well, all this finally got sorted out in 1929 when Mussolini managed to sign with the papacy the Lateran Treaty, in which case each of the two recognized the sovereignty of the other. The Vatican recognized the Italian state, and Italy recognized Vatican City as a separate nation. There were a lot of other provisions to it as well. A concordat, which provided for state support of the church, and so forth. But in any case, for many, having sorted that one out once and for all, not only eliminated a kind of a festering sore that had been around for a long time, but for the Catholic Church and for the Catholic hierarchy, that was regarded as a blessed event, and for that he was much lauded. And finally, Mussolini was a great builder, a builder of buildings and infrastructure. Of course, any leader can do that. All he needs is the money to do it with, even if he has to borrow the money, and as we've seen in modern times as well. But nonetheless, he did do that. He was responsible for a certain amount of socially responsible legislation. So he was a man who was constructive. Most notably, he's always been credited with the notion that he made the trains run on time. And I can say, and my wife and I are frequent visitors to Italy for walking and hiking holidays, and we've managed to ride the trains all over Italy. They really work. They're good. They're on time. So far as we're concerned, that's great, and Mussolini did us a favor. Okay, what about the negatives? What are the people that say, no, he was not good for Italy, and therefore condemn him? Well, first of all, what comes to mind is that he was a violent, repressive leader. He put down any form of opposition with an iron fist. He tolerated no opposition. He imprisoned people. He executed them A little bit like Franco, who we talked about in another video, some real parallels here. And so his tactics, even though he's prime minister of a supposedly democratic country, were not that at all. It really was a dictatorship, and one that was not shy about using oppressive and violent measures. Number two, he was a military catastrophe. Virtually all of the military initiatives of Italy during the Second World War failed. And as a consequence of that, of course, Italy was humiliated. Again, it was, as in the case of all losers, much punished at the end of the war. And of course, a lot of Italians were killed in the course of the various encounters in which they were involved. Nobody really has anything good to say about Mussolini as a warrior. His performance and behavior didn't do him any favors abroad either. Italian citizens and those even of Italian background were in many respects interned in both the U.S. and in the U.K. So his failures and his repressive tactics had far-reaching influences. So in many respects, but mostly because he was a loser during the Second World War, but in many other respects, a nasty chap, although one with great style and great charm. So that's not a very good report card for him, and that's really the reason why there are a lot of negative votes. Okay, what's my take? Well, my take is that Mussolini was the archetype demagogic politician who managed to make his way through great charm, charisma, great oratory, an inspiration for Hitler, and he almost wrote the rule book on how to do it. His speeches are flamboyant, and he carried everybody along with him to the detriment of Italy. So I vote no, he was not good for Italy. Who cares about charm if you leave devastation and havoc in its wake? So there it is, my view. Hope you liked it. I think you almost have to, really. But in any case, please subscribe, do the usual stuff, notify, make comments, etc., etc. And I'll see you at the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.